Hi, aloha, and welcome to the That's Not Normal podcast. My name is Jennifer O'Neil.
And I'm Michelle Schneider. Going to give you a friendly reminder if you like today's topic to please give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Yes, absolutely. We love feedback, we love comments. So definitely make sure that you add those as well. We do read them, although we've been very busy preparing for several different things. I do have a channeling class coming up for those of you who would like to, I don't know, get into the channeling class or the free webinar. Definitely go check out my website, the keys to the spirit world.com. That's where I usually post all of our events, the information. That's the best place to find out kind of what's going on as far as classes, events in person, any of those types of things. So that's where you would want to go. In fact, that will be, people have been emailing me and messaging me about the scans that I've been doing, the energy scans, the biowell scans. That's a good place to find that as well, because I will be opening those up in Hawaii. If I haven't already, by the time you heard this podcast, they will be done here in Hawaii. And so there's going to be a place for you to find out all about those there. They do have to be done in person. People are asking me that. They do have to be done in person. Well, I'm doing them in person at this point in time. So there's that.
And then for your channeling class, which starts April 9th, you have the free webinar on the 2nd.
Yes.
So April 2nd. So tell me a little bit or let everybody know what that free webinar, if they're like maybe on the fence, would that be a good thing for them to check out to see if
Yes, it would be a good thing for them to check out on several different levels. One is if you are on the fence, like, do I need to take the class? Is this going to benefit me? Because this year I'm doing some certification classes where you will be certified through Empath University. And this is one of those certification classes. That being said, a lot of people don't know, why would they want channeling? What should they be learning about it? Like, how would it enhance their abilities? And that's where the webinar will come in. It'll talk more, or it more like I will be talking to you more about why that you might want to look into the channeling class, but why you would want to know about channeling in general. I think that this is a very important topic if you are interested at all in learning more about your spiritual development, connecting with spirits, and or maybe doing readings or anything like that. So whether you're on the end of the spectrum where you're just like, I want to develop my own spiritual stuff, I want to develop my spirituality, I want to have a better connection with my guide, with my angels, things like that, it's very good to have a lot of this knowledge. It's like extremely important. In fact, that's what helped me develop as far as I did, as quickly as I did, by having a mentor that really worked with me on the channeling aspect. And I think that that gets missed sometimes. So whether I would have went on and done things like I did professionally, it was absolutely a huge component to the connection of all the things. So just making sure that connection is there, understanding the connection, learning how to work with the connection, it adds a lot of value. And then if you are doing readings, or maybe you want to get into the metaphysical space, you absolutely want to educate yourself and know more about what that means, how that would work for you, because there's a lot when it comes to channeling, a lot of aspects, a lot of information that you need to have or could truly benefit from if you get the proper information.
Yeah. And it's the live class too, that webinar, so that if you have
Yes,
questions, you could pop in and you can ask any questions that you have.
correct. So both classes
Yeah.
are live. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not, they're, well, the channeling class, the actual class, not the webinar, that will be recorded in case people miss it, but it will be done live.
Yeah.
Um, and the webinar will be done live as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, how are things going? Because we're going to talk about stress today. Stress
Things in
free.
my world, I feel like for the first time, I noticed in the past couple days where I was like, oh, like maybe I'm in a better spot because I've come from this, I would say maybe even the last 2 years of just like go, 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 like 100 miles an hour, feeling like I can't breathe to the point where it's like, okay, maybe we're starting to get in a better place now.
In a better rhythm and a
Yeah.
better, yeah. Well, that's going to come along with the topic that I want to talk about, because you've made a lot of changes, however, and you made changes because of stress levels that you were experiencing, which is what we're supposed to do, but we don't often do. And
Yeah.
that's not something that you should feel guilty about or ashamed of, because that's typically what most people do. That's their MO. They tend to manage stress often and longer than they should. And that's why I want to have this conversation, because when I'm doing the readings and when I'm doing the scanning and when I'm doing all the things that I do as far as um, working with people with chronic health issues, I do a lot of that. I have a lot of uh, clients that are struggling with chronic health issues. Then I have the regular clients that are struggling just with depression or anxiety type of things. And then I have my reading clients, and I have my students that are trying to connect with, you know, a higher force and spirit, and learning to develop their intuitive senses. And one of the things that I started noticing, especially recently, is stress is really affecting all these people across the board. So I find it fascinating that while I deal with a lot of different types of people, I deal with people where I'm working with higher education for them. I'm helping them to develop. I'm teaching them how to connect with spirit and do all these things. And I'm doing psychic readings for other people who want some guidance. And then I'm working with people that do have chronic health issues or that would like to understand their energy better. They want to be as healthy as they can be moving forward, whether that be they just want to be healthier moving forward and they're trying all these different aspects and they add in this as a component, or something scared them and they want to learn how to move forward differently with a different lifestyle change. Stress is one of the highest, most poignant components that causes problems across the board in every aspect and every avenue of my work. And I'm noticing that it's not just very prominent in people's lives in a way that they don't seem to notice, but it's affecting a lot of things that they also are sort of dismissing. They're dismissive of the effects that it's having. Then you have the aspect of the way that the cultures and society has moved forward, with stress being a part of that component. It's become way too acceptable. Now we have people in a lot of different not great situations going, how do I feel better? How do I manage this better? How do I connect in? It's causing a lot of problems, I'm noticing. And so I think that it was a topic that I really wanted to discuss, so that people are more aware of how much that can change your quality of life in literally every aspect of your well-being, whether it be spiritual, physical, emotional. It has such a hold on everybody. And that's not the bothersome part for me. The bothersome part is the hold is acceptable. It's been, I don't know, completely normalized, as in,
Well,
well, we're not going to be able to just go through life and not have stress.
yeah, to
That's the
me,
problem.
I think of like the hustle culture, right? Where somehow that got really trendy for a while to like push harder, do more, everybody is like so focused on succeeding, achieving, they want to do more, and it runs everybody into the ground and it completely burns everybody out. And I kind of just even feel like we're at some sort of boiling point now, because I would ask my mom and my parents, I'd be like, was life this stressful? Like, 40 years ago? Like
Right.
why does it seem so different now?
It is different now. It is different for a lot of different reasons. And I would like to address before I forget the hustle culture is not a bad thing. That's not just closely linked to stress, because there are some people that work within the hustle culture that are loving so much what they're doing. They're very passionate about it, and they're just in it to wing it and see like what's going to happen, and they want to try this and they want to try that, and they're not really attached to anything. And when you're not really attached to an outcome, the stress level is lower because you're not putting so much self pressure on yourself, and the expectation is just not there. That is not necessarily a bad thing. You're just seeing what sticks, and then you're going to maybe pursue that avenue. It's usually later down the road when you start seeing some sort of success that the self pressure will then show itself, etc., in that manner. So let's just back it up a little bit to things have changed incredibly, even just since I've been alive. The way that society has changed is just night and day. We have all kinds of things that are influencing.
Well, there was kind of a technology explosion.
Right. And that's what I mean. It's influencing people's perspective. It's influencing their um, belief systems, influencing how they live, kind of, in essence, like what they're going to post maybe on social media, what they're going to share, what they receive on social media. And I'm not blaming stress all on social media. I'm saying that it's an added component to a lot of other things, because people who are not on social media, I have absolutely have clients that are just refuse to be on there, and they are also struggling with severe stress. And we have to go back to something that everybody knows this. This is not rocket science. We have a fight or flight mechanism that we've been instilled with that allows us to survive. That's where it kind of stems from way back in the day. This is not new knowledge. For most people, they're going to be like, yeah, yeah. Now, that worked really well when, a tiger came into your village and you had to protect yourself. But then we have the component where the tiger leaves and then the stress is gone. Not only that, people need to realize that prior to where we're at today, when we were surviving and living, we were a lot more harmonious with nature and animals, and we understood cycles. We looked and depended upon cycles for food, for the way the animals behaved, that we were a lot more in tune with the rhythmic nature waves and energy, and how everything was more relating to one another, how everything was had a domino effect. We were way more in tune with our spiritual selves, and blending that with the physical component of everything that we could see and acknowledge. Now as we move forward, and safety is not so much an issue, as far as you're not in danger, is something might come into a tiger's not going to come into your house or anything like that. We are now facing other types of stressors. And these types of stressors that have become normalized are causing huge, and I mean astronomical, problems within society and within people. Absolutely 100%. Those are more typically related to job, family relationships, choices that you're making, and they come together and create this large bundle of just heavy emotional energy, disconnect from spirit, causing the body physical symptoms. And that would be something I would like to talk about a little bit more, because there's not typically just one area of your life either that you're stressing about. There seems to be, what I've learned is, people are juggling several balls of stress. They're flipping several balls of stress in the air, and once they get rid of one falls. So they're just juggling stress all the time. And they're like, well, everybody else is doing it. Or if you have a conversation with somebody, They're like, what are you like, what are you complaining about? Like, I'm just as stressed as you are, and I have this and this. That doesn't make it um
It's not a competition.
no, it doesn't make it less impactful.
Yeah.
It just has this component to normalizing it and going, what is wrong with you that this is bothering you? Well, it's bothering people for a reason. And I have so many people that come into my life as clients that they don't realize what stress is doing to them. They don't realize. So, for instance, let's kind of break that down a minute. When it comes to your spiritual connection and connecting with guides or angels or anything of that sort, just connecting with your higher self, anything that you want to think of in that regard, stress is going to make that way harder. It just is. It does a lot of things that you don't even realize it's doing. So if somebody comes to me and wants to learn how to develop and their stress level is, say, above a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, and they just navigate between that during the day, and someone comes to me with below 5, mostly, they're making different choices, things seem to be calmer in their life. The one that is lower stressed is going to advance all day long quicker than the other person, all day long, light years ahead of the other person. Because with stress comes an internal dialogue as well. It becomes, there's this internal dialogue, this internal emotional connection that you have with energy that is very different than somebody who has a lower stress level. So how you would want to envision that is just like you're in a concert, like a chaotic concert of people screaming and yelling, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of movement, and everybody's like being all crazy. That is what it's like in your energy system when you're trying to connect versus somebody who might be sitting outside by a lake, quieting their mind. That would be different with somebody of low stress. You don't have the white noise, you don't have the energetic noise, the internal noise. And people do not realize that internal noise is a very big problem for a lot of people. And it will play a role in your life. And what that internal noise is that worry, it's that energy, it's the thought process, it's all of the stuff that you are moving on a hamster wheel over and over again. And it doesn't have to just be that day. When you're moving all of this internal noise on a hamster wheel, what you're doing essentially is you're coding your energetic system. So now you're feeding it with information that then stays kind of wiry and chaotic within every cell of your being, whether you want it to or not. And there's two problems with that. One is we have an energy that is supposed to move through the body, meridians, frequency that we need to keep clear and keep moving because energy is meant to move. If we don't, we have blockages, and the blockages cause us a lot of problems. Well, internal noise will absolutely cause blockages. Then we have the physical aspect where we are programming every cell of our being and our body with this internal noise, this internal frequency. It's filling every cell with information. And if that information doesn't feel healthy, feels more toxic or chaotic, you are now creating organs based on this cell frequency that you, I guarantee, do not want to be creating any type of your physical being with. It's just not something that you want to manage. What I think really causes a problem is people are under the impression that if they have a stressful day, that the next day they rid themselves of it. That's not what I'm seeing at all. It's not what's showing up on energy scans. It's not what's showing up in people's health. It is not showing up in their mental health or physical health. People carry stress with them to the next day and the next day and the next month and the next year. They just continuously carry it with them because when you essentially code the body, when you code the energetic components, you code your physical body with it, unless you consciously are really paying attention to that and ridding it or counteracting it with some other type of stuff going on, like where you're managing stress better, happiness, you have a better balance, your perception is more healthy, you've trained yourself to let go of things. Unless that happens, you're going to carry this with you over and over. And so I'm noticing there's time frames where the stress just becomes too much for people, and that comes with age. So, of course, you're not as stressed in your teen years. Of course, you're not as stressed in your 20s. You may have had traumatic experiences that have happened to you during those times, but we can generally balance those a little bit better, but they still stick there. So now they stick there. And then as you get into your 30s and you start having different responsibilities and a different mindset, and you start feeling self pressure and you start feeling pressure from the outside world, then things start to shift, because now we're just didn't have a traumatic experience. We're starting to experience stress more daily. Now we're getting used to it. Now we are feeding it into our system consistently. Then we have the 40s and 50s where we're not just having one level of stress. Now we're upping it, level 2, level 3. We're starting to add not just work stress, now we're adding relationship stress, then we're adding family stress. Now we're carrying a lot heavier load. And think about taking that stress and programming your body the whole entire time. It's going to break down, whether that be energetically, physically, mentally, emotionally. It doesn't matter. It starts to code your system in a very toxic, unhealthy manner that is going to cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, I think it's just because we were normalizing it so much, and the chaos and the stress becomes part of the routine, and then we just kind of accept it and be like, well, this is life. This is what I signed up for. This is the cards I've been dealt. And I feel like I heard that sort of a lot throughout like growing up of like, well, this is the hand we were dealt, bad
Right.
things happen. And now that it's just become so routine, it's hard to break out of that cycle. And I don't think a lot of people think about that consciously or like take the time to sit down, because and I was thinking about this maybe even a couple weeks ago of like, how do you break out of the cycle? Like, how do you just change? Because it does take kind of a dramatic change to get out of this hamster wheel of just chaos.
Well, a couple of things have to happen first, and this is typically what does happen. Something usually necessarily needs to break down. So the first thing that usually happens is there's some type of breakdown of your system happening, whether that be physically, emotionally, or whatever. You start to go, I've hit a wall. I've hit a wall emotionally. My anxiety is too high. My overwhelm's too high. My depression, I'm starting to experience depression, and that's affecting my life. Or they have physical problems, stomach, digestion, cancers, uh, all of the things that their physical body begins to break down. If somebody gets to that point, then now they're nervous. The interesting thing is when it comes to the mental aspects of things, people will typically bypass that. And that's usually an indicator prior to getting to the chronic illnesses or physical illnesses. So we have all these checkpoints along the way, like, okay, you're not listening. So we're going to cause some anxiety, overwhelming, some negative thoughts and worries and fears and things like that. Oh, you're not listening. Okay, now we're just moving into the physical. So there's indicators prior to that. So it's going to depend on how far you let it go. But typically, people need to be worried about immortality before they will deal with stress. And that's just really the facts. I
I've
mean,
been there. I would say I've experienced a lot. I've went through periods of deep, deep depression, and I've noticed I could push through that. Like I would just, you would just fight through it. You would carry on. It was when I had the anxiety and the panic attacks
right.
and not being able to eat food where
Yes.
I felt like I was on the brink of death.
Yes.
That's when I had to get serious about making changes.
Right. And so this is not good, healthy, or fun to deal with on my end when I'm helping clients. what I would like to see happen is bring more awareness to that prior to that happening, and you start evaluating your life and how happy you are and how stressed out that you feel on the daily before these things happen. That's where you really need to catch it if you want to have like a transition that's smoother, and or a transition that brings you opportunity. Because if you catch it prior to what we were talking about, the shift in the changes that you have to make in your life don't feel as extreme, but there's also typically some type of universal laws of manifestation that can bring forth opportunities to then implement change into your life as well. So we have a better chance of a smoother transition prior to the breakdown. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have a good transition either way. You absolutely can, but it's a self awareness factor of, this isn't outside stuff that's caused you this problem. This is internal perspectives, beliefs, and choices that are causing you to be where you're at this moment in time. If you're not feeling well mentally, physically, emotionally, you need to start with, what choices have I made? What am I forcing myself to do? Where am I putting a lot of pressure on myself that keeps me doing the same thing over and over again? That's going to be very imperative to understand, why are you doing it? Seeing it, looking at it objectively and going, I can see where this is causing me problems and this is causing me problems. You have to start there before you can go ahead and shift whatever it is that you're doing. You can't make change without the awareness of, this is going to cause me long-term issues. Stress will definitely shorten your life. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not shortening your life. And it's absolutely going to impact your quality of life. So now we have two major problems. Like, these are important things. Our quality of life is important and why we're here. So when you self-reflect, you have to self-reflect. If you're not feeling well emotionally, physically, spiritually, you have to go, how did I get here?
Yeah.
What turn did I take that was not awesome?
But I think it's the hardest
Also,
part though.
what?
I think awareness is the hardest part because the first time I got sick in 2007, and I had doctors that was like, "Well, maybe you had a virus." Had no idea. I thought it was a random, "Oh, you just got ill. You got severely ill. This just happened out of nowhere. You have stomach paralysis." I At that point in time, I did not have any
That is
awareness.
a good point. That is a very good point, because when it does get to physical, and again, bless all the doctors and nurses and everybody out there, because there is a time and place for where we need them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. They are working with what they can work with when you go to them on a physical level. So they are now working with symptoms that they're trying to physically correct. So, God bless them and all that they do. But I've never in my psychic world, which would be my whole life, ever seen anybody having a physical or emotional response to something that was outside of their wheelhouse of some choices that they've made as adults. As children, we're dealing with a different set of stuff happening
Yeah.
there. So that gets into a whole different podcast. But if you're talking, and I'm talking like children like 12 and under, or 10 and under,
Yeah.
young children. But even if you're getting into the teenage years and on up, if you start having reactions that are emotional and physical, you're causing yourself some problem somewhere. You are trying to force yourself toxicity or stress. You're trying to force feed it to yourself in a way that your body's rejecting. And that's a problem. And if you do it long enough, if you consume the toxicity, whether it be perspective wise, emotional wise, choice wise, if you continue to consume this, your body's going to break down. There's no way around it. It absolutely is just going to happen. And that's why we need to be very aware of the toxicity we are feeding ourselves on accident. Nobody's doing
Yeah.
this on purpose. This is not
Yeah.
your directive. It's not something you want to do. It's part of learning how to navigate life. It's part of learning how you manage things. It's part of learning not to do things that everybody else is doing. And that is where I think people get really hung up is I feel like people they don't want to not be normal. So they want to continue along the lines of what most people do. It's very scary for people to think outside the box. It's very scary for them to take action that is not normal. It's very scary for people to pursue things that they don't know the outcome to, whether that be creative, passion that they have, a job change, if it's going to upset people or it doesn't have a what would I say like a factual outcome, then people start getting nervous
Yeah.
and they start veering away towards familiarity. They do not like unfamiliar territory, but the thing is, if you don't like where you're at, that's familiar to you and that's where you're going to stay.
Yeah.
You have to venture outside familiar territory to something that feels very unfamiliar. And when you get there, it's not comfortable. So people typically then race back to what's familiar. And that includes relationships, jobs, all kinds of choices. They race back to what's comfortable. They like to be in that spot. Uncomfortable is where you want to be most of the time because that means that you're experiencing things and you're learning things that you might not quite get yet, but you'll get there.
Yeah.
You are on a path of things that maybe you don't know how it's going to unfold. And that's always good because, well, I don't want to say always good, but I mean, there's a lot of good in that because just because you don't know what's down that road that is unfamiliar territory does not mean that that road's not super cool and maybe doesn't have a lot of other things attached to it. But there are a lot of people that do pursue out of the box situations. And that also, with social media and different things, can cause a lot of problems because now you have some people that are like, yeah, no, I'm totally pursuing this and I want to see what happens here. And they end up having success with social media or YouTube or different things like that. And everybody wants to be like them. But if they have the fear factor, then they start putting self pressure on themselves to achieve what that exact person achieved. Now, it's okay to have goals and things that are set upon what other people are doing, but you don't want to set your goals to achieve the identical thing because you're
Yeah.
very unique. And so, most of the people that you see that are truly happy and successful within anything out of the box, any job out of the box, any lifestyle that's out of the box. And you're like, wow, that looks very cool. I'm enjoying just that vibe. And I would love to have that vibe in my life. I can tell you from experience because most of the people in my world have very out of the box jobs. Their lifestyle is very different. Most of those people pursued those things based upon screw it, let's see what happens. I just want to go this direction. I love this so much that money wasn't an issue. It wasn't, people's opinions weren't a problem. You know, they weren't held back with the fear and worry. So there was no self pressure there. Now you're working with the universal laws and you're just getting into creative expansion, which is what we talked about before. Now we're tuning in, not tuning out.
Yeah, I feel I can relate to a lot of that too, because it was just like me, whether or not my family thought I was crazy, I'm like, I'm gonna work for myself. And I didn't really have a safety net in place. So maybe not the wisest idea to start at the beginning of the pandemic. But I feel like it turned out well. I feel
Yes.
like I look around and I'm like, the thought of having a normal job or just working a 9 to 5, that feels like that would crush my soul. And I'm just like, there's no way I could do that.
Yes. But the two things cause people problems with that. This is what we're supposed to do essentially. Now, you might want to have a 9 to 5, or like maybe you want to become a doctor or a teacher or something that um does have a very structured time frame. That's great, is if that's what you desire. But two things typically hold people back. And one is outside perspective of friends and family and how they're going to view it, and then self pressure and money, which I kind of put those together.
Mhm.
Self pressure and money, because we also have this expectation, I feel like, in society anymore, of having a certain type of lifestyle, whether that be the size of your house, or everybody in the US has a car, you know, they expect to have certain things, certain luxuries, I guess I would say. If that's important to you, taking a leap of faith is in taking an aspect of yourself where you're going to just pursue a passion. That's not going to work out very well. You have to be in a space where you just desire the excitement of living, you desire the excitement of expansion, of new things, of exploring, of adventuring in your life. And by exploring and adventuring, I don't necessarily mean climbing Mount Everest. I mean exploring opportunities, job opportunities, friendships, relationships, being adventurous on maybe taking a leap of faith with something. I've known people that start doing the thing that the yes man's done, and I'm just going to say yes to everything and see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
But being comfortable in the uncomfortable, that's very, very important. If you have a perception, a belief system, and a lifestyle that revolves around material things, a certain size house, with a certain year of a car, like maybe a newer car, and this is very important to you, it's going to be hard for you to switch your lifestyle to an untraditional, screw it, let's just see what happens lifestyle. It's going to be very hard for you to switch into that mindset. So you're going to need to gauge what's more important. However, the people who typically I know that have chosen a non-traditional lifestyle, they have more excitement and they gain more passion and I can't just that connection to spirit and that connection to soul, that is so addicting to those people, is just having that high frequency flying feeling, that material things are not going to cut that at all, because material things, they wither and they get old and then you have to replace those things, and they are something that's outside your body, so it's not affecting your emotional state, your spiritual connection, and your physical health. It's not affecting things internally. You don't get to experience it within who you are. Therefore, it's very different. If you're looking to fulfill the things, your purpose, that hole, that void that you're feeling, with outside situation, with outside things, outside situations, you're never going to fill it. It doesn't work that way. And I mean, I think that people understand this, but yet I find they don't. So yes, you may be going, yeah, yeah, we all know this, people listening, yeah, yeah, we get it. However, if you're one of those people, I would challenge you to ask yourself how happy you are at this moment in time. What choices are you making? Are you just, it's every day, are you joyful to be alive? Are you excited to finish up a project or start a new one? Are you just feeling grateful and excited to hang out with your friends? Are you like, where's that? your spiritual connection. How do you feel? And if you feel great, then you really just shouldn't have listened to this podcast. It was a waste of time.
Yeah, this is not for you.
Maybe just skip to the next one. But I find that more people don't feel great, and then they have a lot of excuses. I swear to God, if I hear the word I can't again, every every time that you talk to people that are just not willing, I can't, they're just not willing to change something. I can't because of this. I can't because of that. I can't because my parents, my friends, my kids, my this, I, I just, oh my gosh, biggest pet peeve ever. I can't. No, if you're saying that, it's I won't,
Yeah.
not I can't. You can do anything. You won't. You won't because this is holding you back. You won't because you're choosing to keep these people happy. You won't because this is way scarier for you. And that fear is worse than the what might be on the other side.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. I just think stress is bad.
I think everybody knows stress is bad, which is a very poignant thing. And I just want to remind everybody this podcast is not about, we all know stress is bad.
Yeah.
I really, truly do not believe that people understand the impact stress is having in your life at this moment in time.
Yeah.
I
I
really
think
don't. I think that you just don't know. You have no idea. And then it's going to take a large event that's scary for you to go, wow, I remember that stress podcast I listened to like 5 years ago. Probably should have changed something then, you know?
Yeah, I think if there was one thing that I could shout from the rooftops, I would want everybody who's listening to please just check in with your emotions and be honest with yourself and have the tough conversations with yourself because it took me over 15 years to finally get to the bottom of what was going on in my life. And I would hate for somebody else to have to, go through 15 years and not know truly how much they're emotions and their life and their stress is truly affecting their health and their
You
long
would
term.
hate it, but that's normal. That's really, really just what's happening. I
Yeah.
mean, people are going 15 years and 20 years and 25. It's
And it
just what's,
sucks. And that's why I'm like, please just check in with your emotions and be honest about where you truly are.
if people really truly, like, if I could scan everybody listening to this podcast and they could really see how it shows up in your energy system, like you could actually visually see it, you would be shocked. You would just be like, oh, that's not good. Like
Yeah.
you understand it, but you to see it and to see what shows up within your energy system with that, it's something that you can't really deny. And once you see it, you'll want to change it. Trust me, you'll definitely want to change it.
Yeah.
But that being said, if you want to learn more about the channeling not podcast, the channeling webinar that's free, or the channeling class, or learn more about the energy scans, if you're in Hawaii or you're going to be in Rapid, go to keystothespiritworld.com because, again, all the events are on there. Everything that's up and coming will be on there. And you have anything to add?
Other than if you have any questions or if this has sparked anything, to please leave those in the comments. We are always happy to see your questions. And if you haven't liked the video by now, please like it and
Yes.
subscribe.
All right. And so until next time, have the most amazing day. Aloha. Bye.
Bye.